Why do we spend countless hours and dollars out in our shop working on our cars, tinkering with our boats, putting together our motorcycles? I've always been curious what it is behind all of it. So I'm going to go out and talk to some people. And we're going to find out why.
For this episode, I was up in Vancouver, Washington at All American Classics. I was also talking with Todd Toedtli, the owner. He was kind enough to let me into his badass shop. And there was more cool stuff in here than you could shake a lower control arm at, trust me. But I wasn't here for all that. I was here for this. 20 acres of genuine, made-with-time patina.
Oh, I suppose a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
When I grew up with a body shop in the backyard, and so there was always a car around that wasn't being repaired that I could help myself to taking apart. So I was given a socket set when I was 5 years old, and I guess tore a few pieces apart.
There you go. So you grew up with a body shop in your backyard. That was your father?
Yeah, my dad and my uncle started a body shop together in '65 called Todd's Auto Body.
Oh. Now, was it primarily collision work? Or?
Yes, it was collision work. They started out mostly just doing paint work, doing a lot of paint work for car lots and that sort of thing.
Awesome. And so that kind of was your introduction into the whole car thing.
I just grew up with it in my backyard. Obviously, didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
But eventually, when I was in high school, I went. I started working at that shop.
Oh.
And worked there until we started All American Classics in 1989. My dad, because he had a body shop business and was always into cars, and I've been going to swap meets since I was a baby.
Wow.
I started going to the Portland swap meet riding on his shoulders when I was a couple of years old.
Wow.
So I was always drug around to all those events. So I guess I'm one of the lucky ones that was still interested in after having to go to all those events, where some people turn away and have no interest in it.
Yeah.
But I've seen other people I know that have kids that have absolutely no interest in it. Well, there's a lot easier ways to probably make a living than dealing with the older cars. There's not as much money in it as a lot of shows make it out to be. It's a lot harder, but I guess I do it because I enjoy it. I would no doubt be able to make more money selling parts off later model vehicles than the older stuff, but that's not where my interest is. My interest is in the older cars and preserving them and saving a lot of cars that would typically end up in the crusher. And so we buy a lot of those cars, and some of them get sold. A lot of them will end up in the crusher eventually, but that's after all the good parts have been taken off and sold and shipped all over the world. Yeah, I suppose so. I'm very, very particular with my cars and how they're done. That's why typically I try to do almost all of the work myself, is I want it done the way I want it done. Yeah. And there's people I would trust to do it, but there's not a lot of people I would trust to work on them. They just don't typically
have the same care.
They don't have the care or the attention to detail that I have on particular pieces. Or well, the first vehicle that was actually something I could run and drive was a '62 Impala, two-door hardtop, which I still have.
Cool. So what did you do with that car? Did you do a restoration, or is it just?
Well, I mean, this is in the early '80s, so I needed a car for school, or wanted a car, and I wanted a Camaro, but my dad thought I needed this '62 Impala, which I wasn't real impressed with at the time. But my grandpa had the car, and it wasn't the typical grandpa car. It was just something he bought from a friend who was going to flip the car anyhow. So my dad said, well, you buy the car from him, we'll paint it up. If you don't like it when we get done, you can sell it, no problem, and go buy a Camaro. Well, I still have the car, so I guess I kind of fell in love with it. So
awesome.
We painted it black and lowered it. And first year out of school, I drove it with a 6-cylinder and the 3-speed in it. Then next year, I put a 327 with dual 4s and a 4-speed in it. And that's the way the car still is today. So And then many Camaros came after that, which I have. So. Well, okay, I got one story here. In the late 80s, I really liked the new IROC Camaros. So I built one of those when it was a couple years old. It was lowered, had custom paint on it, and it was pretty much of a standout car. And one time, I don't remember who was with me, but we were headed down I-5, heading out one night or something, and State Patrol pulled me over. And like, I wasn't, I was coming off a on-ramp onto the freeway, so I got on it pretty hard to get in front of this truck. And then all of a sudden the lights come on, and I get pulled over. It's like, I didn't really think I was doing anything wrong. And the cop comes up to the window, and he didn't even ask me about that. He just said he wanted to know who painted my car. And I was the one who had painted it growing up in a body shop.
Awesome.
And so yeah, I guess that's one of my stories. That's really hard to tell, because 30 years ago, if you asked somebody the same question, would they have given you the answers of what they're doing now? Yeah. It's hard to say. I don't think, if we're talking about cars that are being built now versus cars that have already been around 20 or 30 years, I think there's not going to be a lot of cars being built in the last 15, 20 years anybody's really going to care about.
Yeah.
There's just too many throwaway cars that have no character. Obviously the Camaros, the Mustangs, the Corvettes, maybe the new Challengers, specialty cars like Buick Grand Nationals and Monte Carlo Super Sports. I think that stuff will have some interest, but they're not building a huge number of those cars, so it'll be real interesting to see what people are restoring then. The only tradition is the Camaro only goes out with the top down, so the weather better be nice.
There you go.